Hola, bom dia. Carl Munson here. Tudo bem? You consigo, remember to put that in if you don't want the conversation to stop. Yeah, Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal live stream. Look at that very serious question I'm asking you there. Can the Portugal we know and love survive? I've got news that obviously revolves around the pandemic, COVID-19 this morning. No escape from that. Air Bridge Gate, you know, what's happening with the special relationship between the UK and Portugal and whether or not there can be an air bridge between the two countries. There is now a petition. That's something to look at. We will look at the weather, of course. And as a way of finishing, to cleanse our palates afterwards, we'll be looking at the July night sky. I found a lovely article in the Portugal Resident about the July night sky and what you can expect as mankind, as humanity has done since we were here on this planet. Look to the skies for inspiration, and there's lots of that for July. So we'll finish with that today, but a little bit serious this morning. I mean, normally I try and do a feel-good Friday, but today I'm moved to look at what's going on in the news, what's happening, trying to make some sense with the COVID-19, the pandemic situation, its impact. I really want to know what you're thinking about it, okay? We took a very straight line on this at the beginning, didn't we? The whole reason for the Good Morning Portugal project as we know it was to bring information, straightforward information about what expats might do in English, to follow the rules, to help flatten the curve. That's what we talked about, wasn't it? Back in February, March, can't remember now, but we're nearly 6 months into all of this. And the impact is being felt. The confusion is being felt, and the impact is being felt, and the future is being feared. And do we need to be on that back foot? That's what I want to talk about with you. I really want to hear your views on that. So do stick them in the comments, please. Lovely opening screen this morning from Peter Castanera, the official. I'm going to make him the official ambassador, whatever. The official ambassador of Castanera de Pera. Peter Wilton Davies sent us that beautiful shot of morning moisture from the spring this year in Castanera de Pera. Keep those coming. Loving those pictures that you send me to start the show off with. Give everybody a chance to arrive. So let's have a quick look at the weather before we get possibly controversial and a little bit maudlin with that question: can the Portugal we know and love survive all of this? I think it can. But we have to really apply ourselves, perhaps in different areas to where we're looking at the moment. But we'll come back to that. Weather then. The digital seaweed of the Good Morning Portugal show is telling us, we've been saying this, haven't we, for the last couple of days. Excellent weather is forecast for the weekend. Clean sweep of sunny skies as I'm looking across my data here. The data tells me that there's not a cloud in the sky pretty much in Portugal until next week. Fabulous summery weather then across Portugal. A little bit of cloud, for example, in Setúbal, where, of course, our wine comes from for the Good Morning Portugal Wine Club tomorrow night. Have you got yours? It is the Pegóis, the Toriga grape, Toriga Nacional. There's what we're looking at 2017. And a little bit of cloud there in the part of the world where that wine comes from, but only next Wednesday. The high temperatures are looking like they're going to continue well in the 30s. Porto Alegre, for example, Porto Alegre district, Guarda similarly in the 30s. Bragança, mid-30s for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week in Bragança. Viseu in the 30s, Santarém in the 30s. A little bit of cloud coming there next week. Leiria the same, a little bit of cloud next week. But great temperatures across the country, ever as you would imagine. High temperatures, certainly this Sunday, 39. Castelo Branco, 38 Sunday, but going into more 30-degree plus temperatures next week as well. So fabulous weather. What we came here for, part of the theme today, the Portugal we know and love, the Portugal we hoped to experience upon our arrival here. How is that being affected by the pandemic? Few hellos before we go into that. Very quick good morning, then I'm off. Have a good one, and I'll tune in tomorrow for the sport. To see Wayne Barker's debut on the Expat Sport Report at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. If you like your sport, Calvin Avery has a fantastic roundup of all things sporty. I'm not a sport guy, but I really like his angle on it and having a chat with a few people who are interested in sport. It has to be said, mainly fellas. So that if you like the company of men, whether you're a man or a woman, but you like the company of sporty guys, tune in tomorrow. at 10 o'clock for our Expat Sport Report, episode number 2 in the season 1 of the Expat Sport Report, where Wayne Barker will be telling us about the National Hockey League. Here he is now. Good morning, Portugal. Wishing we were there with you. You'll be with us tomorrow, Wayne, giving us the lowdown, the intel on the NHL. And tell me, the first thing first, is it North American? Is it like Canadians and Americans playing each other, or is it confined to Canada? That's how ignorant I am on that matter. Bon dia, Carl from Gary. I'm imagining you'll have something to say, Gary, about this question of like, can the Portugal we know and love survive the effects of the pandemic? Good morning from sunny Claire and Steve at Mejilhora Grande. We're on the move onto the west coast this morning. Oh, how lovely. It's going to be blisteringly hot there, Claire and Steve. Goodbye to the Algarve and welcome to Zambujeira do Mar. Wow. Incredible. Okay. And sunny in Vila de Rei. Loving your weather updates, guys. To me, your weather updates are much more reliable than anything that comes from the internet, because it's actually what's happening where you are. And I'm really grateful to you for taking the trouble for sticking your head out the window and telling me. The approach is a bit like an ostrich. Yes, meerkat or ostrich, that's what we've been talking about. I tend not to worry unless it affects me directly in the moment. If you can't do anything about it right now, why worry? Anyway, my wife does all the worrying. That sounds like a good approach, Wayne, outsourcing your worry there to other parts of the family. Feliz sexta, tudo. Very good, Paul. Happy 6th day of the week, of course, in Portugal. Sexta, the only day with sex in it, as I often say. Feliz sexta. That's not a comment on my own personal life, I can assure you. But yes, it's sexta feira today, the 6th holiday, literally, I think. 6th festival, because of course the days of the week come directly from the religious tradition of Portugal. So happy Friday to everybody on this, talking about these rather we don't have to be negative about it, do we? We don't have to be miserable about it. We can just have a look at the facts, I guess. That's if you can find any. So for starters here, let's go to the Portugal resident. And don't forget, yes, we will go back to nature by the end of the show as we look up into the night sky and see what's there for us in July. But before we get there, let us look at this story from the... I did say I'd stop calling them stories. It really belittles the news, I think, to call it stories. But I guess in a sense it is. We're storytellers as people, aren't we? Stark proof that COVID-19 is indirectly killing more people than those who contract it seems to have emerged today, with new data on the number of additional net deaths in the first 6 months of 2020 compared to the same period in 2019. Say reports, there has been an 11% rise in the number of deaths this year. In numbers, this works out at 3,281. Only 1,576 of those deaths have been attributed to COVID-19 in the same period, meaning, or the meaning derived here anyway by Natasha Don here, whose coverage I have been very grateful for, meaning 1,707 will have been from other causes. Negocios Online stresses that up until May 31st, hospitals were actually reducing the number of people able to use them. Consultations were slashed by, get this, over 900,000 consultations were slashed, while there were 85,000 surgeries put on hold. What do we derive from that? This is what some people have been saying, right? That the effect of the pandemic, indirect effect of the pandemic, is that with all these cancellations, people not going to hospital, people not being diagnosed, there would be other kinds of deaths other than COVID-19. Are we seeing the beginning of that? Okay, I want to share something else with you now then, of course. NHL, North American, 31 teams, of which 7 are Canadian. Changed a lot over the years. Okay, changed a lot in the sense that there are less Canadian teams. Fewer. Is it less or fewer? Fewer Canadian teams in that league. What happened, Canada, if that is indeed the case? Another article to share with you, this time from the Portugal News. This is the controversial matter here. I've very gladly shared with you, have I not, the always referred to this special relationship. I'm from the UK, in case some of you listening didn't know that. I am from the UK, and there has been this special relationship that I detailed fairly recently, along the lines of the Treaty of Windsor, where kings from, I think, the 14th century decided that Portugal and England, as it was then, I suspect, would help each other. The one would help the other who was in need Is that still the case when something like this has occurred? The uncertain future for travel. And I would like to talk about this within the context of Portugal looking to backslide. I did see an article that suggested that Portugal was the third worst country now in terms of COVID cases per capita. And that's why there is this hesitancy from the UK. I mean, it's a bit like the pot calling the kettle black, isn't it? But I suppose that's the reason, isn't it? If the UK is struggling, especially, it doesn't want to make an air bridge with another country that might appear to be struggling. Although I think we have another article to suggest that there is no struggle here. The politicians have been working hard to put right the idea that Portugal is in any way out of control, and that there is a lot being done to make it and maintain it as a very safe place. As Portugal awaits news about whether or not the country will be given an air bridge between the country and the UK, a new online petition has been launched to lobby the UK government into action. I was sent that this morning. At the time of going to press, there had yet to be a decision on whether the UK government would open an air bridge between the country and Portugal, which would allow visitors to not have to quarantine in the UK for 14 days once they arrive back from a trip to Portugal, because it ends up being quite an expensive and impactful holiday, right? If you have to go home and then spend another 14 days in quarantine. Can you imagine if you had to spend 14 days in quarantine here on arrival, then have a 2-week holiday, then go home and be in quarantine for 14 days? That's quite a lot of time out your schedule. The online petition, which can be found at, and that's change.org/Portugal Airbridge, had already, at the time of going to press, received more than 5,000 signatures and calls for UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, in case you'd forgotten him and his name, to get your finger out, they're telling him, and give a nation that has done very well in fighting the virus a summer season from the start of July. Yes, so this, as ever, is approached on a number of, at least 2 major fronts, economic and health. The petition was set up by Charles Barrett, who has been a regular visitor to Portugal for the last 6 years with his wife and twin 12-year-old girls. Charles lives in Dunlop in Scotland. He told the Portugal News, "My belief in life has always been for fairness, honesty and transparency." I can almost hear the national anthem in the background. "I've been following the dealing with COVID-19 here and elsewhere, and that is most of the news nowadays. As such, when I read that Portugal may be classified as red in the new UK traffic light system, I was baffled, given the facts I had read on how each EU country, including the UK, has been dealing with this virus." He continued, "My motivation was therefore not to fight for my beliefs and for Portugal. My motivation was therefore to fight for my beliefs and for Portugal, given that I do not have direct access to influencers on this matter. Do any of us? This is a big question. I can only influence, hopefully, with people, as people matter in this world, through change.org. I also believe that we have to support each other as people at this time anyway. We can know, no matter which country you are from or reside. Portugal and its people need tourists to live and survive through this pandemic. And indeed, tourists need Portugal for its safeness, beautiful resorts, friendly people, and a cheap holiday." To value, I would prefer to use the word value, to recover and relax after being in lockdown for so long. As such, the introduction of an air bridge between the countries both helps Portugal and the UK residents in my world. I see your point, Charles. Meanwhile, Minister of Economy said that there should be no sense of discrimination regarding Portugal in the resumption of flights from the United Kingdom based on the increase in cases of COVID-19 in the Lisboa region. We continue to discuss with the British authorities, blah, blah, blah. So you get the gist there, right? Okay, they want to have, some people want the bridge, lots of people want the bridge, and yet there is still a blockage, it would appear there. Let me see if I can find that article about how the government is doing a sterling job here in Portugal to have the world believe that Portugal is indeed a very safe place to be. And I don't know if I can find that at the moment. They're working hard was the headline I saw to convince people that all was well here. It might have been in a different news. But what do you think of that? And more importantly, you know, the bigger point here I'm trying to make, I want to talk about, presumably there are things you really love about Portugal, right? Or you wouldn't be here. There are things you love about it if you're thinking of coming here, that you've heard about, that you know about, that you experienced once on a holiday or on one of your research trips. Now, to me, a lot. It just occurred to me. I was trying to think about what's the right angle to talk about this, because we can have a straight up, Barney discussion, whatever you want, about, because I believe in freedom of expression, not censoring people. And actually we're a very calm crowd here, aren't we? There aren't very many opinionated and flagrant people in our community here yet. It could change, of course, but I'm all for the discussions about whether to wear masks or not. If you think people should wear masks, that's fine, say so. If you don't, which is a less popular view, I believe you should be able to say that, and you should be able to say why you think that. And whether you think there's a little bit of manipulation or scamming going on with some of how the pandemic is being used, possibly by governments. How 9/11 changed world travel, possibly too much. It affected our daily lives, not our lives when traveling, in a way that's unimaginable, isn't it? And it's just set in stone now, isn't it? It's not pleasant to travel, basically, because of a lot of the additional security measures. I don't know what you do about that exactly, but actually I do, but that's another discussion for another time. And banking security, there's another thing. The amount of stress we all go through because of so-called security and scamming, and how money is laundered and terrorists use the banking system and so on. But the amount of personal stress people go through because of that, and you have to almost give a DNA swab into your iPhone now to get into your personal accounts. You don't have a choice. You can't. It's not like you can say, okay, well, I don't care so much about that, I'm going to take a risk. You're just not allowed to anymore. It's just the systems are being designed, on the one hand, for what seems like a good rational reason, but actually it causes untold pain, distress, and hell sometimes for people who are spending their lives languishing on the end of security clearance telephone lines just to hear what their flipping bank balance is. Is something like that happening with the pandemic? Okay, Gary has a comment. Thank you, Gary. Portugal, as we all know, has a fantastic agricultural past that has been increasingly abandoned by native people as the exodus to cities and other countries took place. Strangely, looking to the past may hold the key to Portugal's future. I'm liking the sound of this, Gary, because it seems to me that this part of the economy needs careful consideration for regeneration in a sustainable and responsible way. We can all testify how good Portuguese fruit, vegetables, and wine are. Hear, hear, sir. Yes, absolutely. Gary, bang on there, mate. I'm going to leave it on the screen so people can see that, as well as the top of my bald head with a slug. From that angle, it looks like I've got a bald head with a big slug having a little rest on it. Anyway, back to the serious matter in hand. Absolutely right, Gary. But what are we doing? We must open the country up to tourism. And okay, yeah, the country's economy is a lot to do with tourism, but have we found out, because of the pandemic, that maybe we do have, let's use the fruit and vegetable and produce analogy. Have we got too big an egg in that single basket? I mean, it's interesting. The economy is fast becoming a basket case. Let's not mince our words here. When you have an economy premised on such, what would the word be? Changeable things, precarious things like tourism. Because even if we didn't have a pandemic, tourism doesn't just go on and on, does it? The thing about tourists is they're very picky. And like it said in that article I read out, people are going to go, the bulk of people are going to go where it's cheap. And then what does that do for a country? That's good for the economy in some ways, but it's not very sustainable or long-term good, in my view. Your views, please, on that. Bon dia. Belgium and the Netherlands do not recommend traveling to Portugal without a good reason. What is going on? Portugal is one of the least affected countries, and we experienced on our short trip that Portugal is doing very well. You see, I would agree with you. And yet there are also conflicting articles to that are suggesting that Portugal is the third worst by some measures in terms of infection. I'm not sure if that's in terms of death, but in terms of infection. And then it's down to testing, isn't it? A country that's not doing many tests might appear to be doing extremely well, but that's just hiding the fact that it might be massively infected, but just not very tested. And I know we can go into, it does slip into this territory, doesn't it? Of the conspiracy theorist bashing, which I don't think is very helpful. That's just a way of shutting down debate. I make the invitation to you now. Say what you need to say here, okay? I will be open-hearted, open-minded, and I trust that others will be here too, because we don't want to be like Twitter or Facebook. You know, this is about discussing things here, I think, of massive importance in my view. And this is of massive importance, I think. You know, the question I'm asking here, that's how I wanted to position this. Can the Portugal we know and love survive? My view is it has to, okay? It's not about whether it will or not. It's like, really, the question is, how can we make sure the Portugal we know and love can survive? And what worries me about that, to be completely frank and honest with you, which is what I like to be, is that the way that things are going in terms of lockdown will penalize the smaller enterprises. Lidl are going to be fine, aren't they? Let's face it. You know, I was really pleased to find Lidl when I first came to Portugal 10 years ago and buy some cheap beer in central Portugal from Lidl and thinking, oh, that's a very nice, easy way to shop. It's a great way of shopping for blokes, I think, isn't it? You just see everything, chuck everything in there. It's very straightforward. But the Lidlization of Portugal also should be taken with a little bit of caution, because do you want a Portugal that only has a Lidl that you drive to? And the end, possibly, which is what could happen with the pandemic, with the economic crushing situation that we're going through. Do you want the little shops to go out of business? I know, of course you don't, but can we also not see that that is what's going to happen if we don't look at how we maintain them? And the longer the restrictions are in place, I know they're open again now, but we don't know what the long-term effects are going to be of the lockdown we've had, whether people can survive that. Because I think I've said before, suffering is very individual and personal and quiet. It goes on behind the scenes, doesn't it? There's the front of, you know, you think a shop's doing okay, because all of us human beings are, generally speaking, apart from those occasionally grumpy shopkeepers, but they always seem to last, those ones. You know, people are positive, people are dynamic, people are industrious, and you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, do you, in their balance sheet? It might be a slow death of, you know, cash flow, just keeping it above the line, and then eventually it stops. And next thing you know, you go to the shop and it's shut because they couldn't continue. And that's the problem, of course, with, you know, the nature of our system is that is capitalism is a very private matter, isn't it? What you know about me is what I project, the car I drive in, the kind of house I've got. You don't know what my banking arrangements are, that it's all absolutely held together with financial gaffer tape and sellotape and you know, chewing gum behind the scenes of refinancing and refinancing the financing. And this, of course, is even what happens with big companies. You know, those it's interesting. I don't think it's just the UK. I think it's in Portugal as well, that the shopping mall owners are massively overfinanced, and certainly the one in UK has gone. One of the really big ones that owns the shopping malls, Into, is it called, has gone into receivership or administration because they own the building, but they're massively overfinanced, and the pandemic did them basically. And that's what I think it could be going on all over the place on a much smaller scale. Small businesses going out of business. The Portugal we know and love is, to me, it's a massive part of what I know and love about Portugal. The small businesses, you know, the mom and pop businesses of Portugal that are presumably, you know, they've got low overheads because they might own the building. I don't know how they do it, frankly. I don't know how a cafe survives on serving what, you know, maybe a couple of hundred coffees a day or something. I don't know how they do it, because they obviously got bills to pay and they've got perishable goods and, you know, all sorts of the perils of running a cafe business. And they do, and they have been, and I've loved that. And I'm worried about their survival. And, you know, whilst they can be given loans and whilst they can be given holidays on payments, that's not the same as having positive cash flow, is it? That's not the same as being a healthy business where more money is coming in than is going out. I don't think a loan is that good an idea, is it? If you're running on the margins, if you're a subsistence business and you take a loan to survive, we all know where that will probably go. It just delays things. It doesn't make things better. Wayne, I think it's about being sensible and trust. Here in the UK, there are those not being sensible. Just look at the BLM gatherings and the beaches when the sun comes out. I would rather be in Portugal, who seem to be taking a different approach, even if it seems stricter in places. Fair point, Wayne. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how it's not just BLM gatherings. Not that, you know, I've got a massive amount of sympathy for how that's being done. Oh God, that's opening up a can of worms, isn't it? But gatherings of all kinds. People, it's like if you're a protester, you are excused some of the rules, which doesn't make any sense, does it? I mean, I don't think the virus, if it does work in that way, thinks, hold on, this is a protester, I'm not going to infect this protester. Thank you, Wayne. How can Leicester be locked down totally and the UK be safe, but because of a fluctuation in cases in the capital, Lisbon, causes such draconian measures from the UK? Worth remembering that London basically refused such measures during the height of their infection rate, with huge differences in cases. Yeah, it's not clear, is it? It's not clear or logical. Let's not, I mean, that's maybe the thing we're doing wrong here, is that we're expecting intelligence, logic, and smartness from governments. Could it be that the post-pandemic age, we cannot expect the sort of paternalistic care of governments that we have looked for forever, and we didn't get it. It's not been in full. It's not government intelligence, not as in military intelligence or espionage, but government intelligence as in wisdom has never been in full supply, has it? Let's be honest about it. And still, we look to the governments to make the rules about these things and tell us what to do. And that's what's breaking down, I suspect. But anyway, going back to how do we preserve and perpetuate the Portugal we know and love? Small shops, for example. And what else is there about Portugal that you know and love, and how might it be affected by the pandemic? My local park, for example, it's a beautiful. It's supposed to, I've told you about this before. It's the Termas Gardens, which are part of the Termas Hotel, founded on medicinal, not a spring exactly, but thermal medicinal waters are where this hotel is built, the Hotel Termas de Coria. And alongside it is a beautiful garden, allegedly the biggest man-made lake in the Iberian Peninsula. It's landscaped gardens, beautiful. I've seen kingfishers in there, see herons in there, and a massive carp. Don't tell the Polish people. Massive carp in this lake, and they took and then the thing is, it's not publicly owned. That's what I like about Portugal as well. Okay, parks, facilities are publicly owned. As soon as the lockdown came, of course, like public parks, it's shut down. But because it's privately owned by the hotel, they've taken advantage of the fact that they can choose when it reopens. Actually, no, the kids' park up the road hasn't been unlocked either, which doesn't make any sense to me. That just doesn't make sense. Get the kids out in the sunshine, in the fresh air, in the playground. You can wipe them down afterwards, can't you? And they're robust kids. If your kid's poorly, don't take them to the playground. If they are, take them to the playground. Get them in the sunshine and the fresh air. But my local park, which makes the area I live in so great, has been shut now for months. And it was one of the great things about being here. The free open spaces of Portugal, shut down. And because they're a private company, I think they can choose when they reopen again. And we went in there thinking 1st of July brought the reopening. Oh no, 10th of July. It's only open for hotel guests. We'll consider again on the 10th of July. And I think, hold on a minute. This is another thing. Okay. So I'm thinking local shops, local cafes, my local park, they've all been affected by this. And it's really, I'm having a bit of grief about that. Anyway, Jeannie, this is it. Absolutely, Jeannie. Buy locally. Much more fun, and you can have a chat, yes, and practice your language. You're absolutely right. This is what I do. I go to my village shop, which I must say is very good. The Mercado da Aldea, the village shop, done in a very modern style. And, I go on my bike, and it's like, to you, Lidl. I do go to Lidl from time to time, but I'm thinking, I don't want to have the profit-generating capacity of what I buy going straight out of the country. Sure, it gives people local jobs. Yeah, get that. Are they amazing? Are they amazing jobs? I don't know. Lidl is supposed to be a good employer, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Oh boy, you just use government and wisdom in the same sentence. Brave. Now, I get your joke, Wayne, but the big joke is on us, isn't it? Like, we know, don't we? We know once you got past a certain age, and you're putting government and wisdom in the same age, and everyone is laughing at you like I just did, and like you're laughing at me. The point is, knowing that, why are we still looking for wisdom from governments? Why are we doing that? Massive carp. They really are massive carp. honestly, Gary. Look forward to having a beer with you in the Termash Gardens if it ever flipping well reopens. We have travelled along the Algarve over the past month and can only say that the current situation can't be sustained. Here we go. This is the truth of it, right? This is what we need to be talking about. Take Old Town Albufeira, for example. Only half the shops are open. Only a few people eating or drinking in cafes and restaurants. Not many people are walking around. See, again, part of Portugal that you love. People out and about, walking around. Unless the gates are opened more, I can't see how these places and businesses can survive much longer. A worry all round. Now, I'm not. Thank you. I'm guessing that's Claire. I'm not saying this to worry anybody or to stir up the proverbial, but we've got to talk about it, haven't we? We've got to be the meerkats, not the ostriches. If we stick our heads in the ground, if we don't talk about it, if we don't come up with some proactive, positive examples that we put into action ourselves, and don't wait for the government, organize, activate this on a local level. We've got to do that, haven't we, to maintain the Portugal we know and love. And I would love it if there are Portuguese people listening to me, us banging on about this. This is not colonialism. This is not expats wanting to run your country. This, to me, is expats, immigrants saying to you, we love your country. We love your culture. And I, Carl Munson, think it's under a massive threat from the pandemic. And only we, us, together, not only we, the expats, but all of us, Portuguese people, expats, people who love Portuguese life, are the ones who can organize it such that it can be perpetuated and sustained for all the reasons and tactics and strategies that people have been coming up with here this morning. And thank you for all those ideas and observations. This conversation isn't really going anywhere, is it? We're going to, as in, I hope it's going somewhere, but I mean, it's not going away. It is good. Let's keep it in the forefront of our mind. Let's remain meerkats, not ostriches. Let's not stick our heads in the ground and hope that mummy and daddy government, our parents, the government are going to sort it all out, because they are not doing a very good job. It's not that they're necessarily incompetent. It's that I don't think these sorts of problems can be solved on the scale on which they try and sort them. You can't. What does a politician know about life in my local town, village, other than looking at numbers and guessing what it must be like and making a decision based on that? Same, what does a politician in London know about a village just outside Leicester? They affect the lives of people in remote places based on numbers and best guesses. I think it's time for people in localities to become more powerful, influential, and actually, finally here, just to sum up with this, I really do. That's why I moved here, obviously, to a particular kind of Portugal, which it occurred to me this morning when I was in the shower. Oh my God, the pandemic is panning that experience, those things that I love about Portugal are under serious threat. And I don't think I'm alone with that. I think there are, I'm getting the sense that people agree in some sense here with me, that the things we know and love, the things we moved here for, the things we want, why that guy who started the petition, why he wants to visit Portugal, the very things are the very things that are being threatened by the effects of the pandemic, and will just get worse unless we intervene and have some constructive, positive conversations. First of all, recognize it. And second of all, what can be done here? And as I think, building on what you were saying there, Gary, the traditions of Portugal are so good, and let's not let them wither on the vine, to use a wine analogy. Let's go back, or let's reinvigorate the local power and the local wisdom and all that's great about small scale, lovely local Portuguese life. Thank you for indulging me there. With that, it's not about me necessarily. It's about discussing that. It's about, if you agree, let me know. If you don't, let me know. But let's have that discussion. I think it's just really, I didn't know how to say it, but I have managed in some way to say what I wanted to say. That is a fear for me. And we will finish now with a look at this is where, of course, when we're in any state of anxiety, concern, or worry, what do we do as human beings? We look to the skies and say, why, oh, why? And if you look to the skies during July this month, you will see the planets Mercury, Mars, and Venus, all early morning objects this month. During the warm July evenings this year, we have 2 giant gas planets. I was so hoping that Uranus would be one of the gas planets in my puerile way. This thanks to Clive Jackson, writing in the Portugal Resident here. So during the warm July evenings this year, we have 2 giant gas planets, Jupiter and Saturn, at opposition in the constellation of Sagittarius. Mrs. M, I got to tell her about this afterwards if she's not listening now. This means that they will be well visible almost all night due south around local midnight, but they will be at a low altitude for northern hemisphere observers. So through a telescope, the image would not be as sharp as when they are higher in the night sky. It will be in 6 years' time when Jupiter returns to its highest point, and about 15 years for Saturn. This month has 3 noticeable meteor showers. Yay, what fun. So lovely clear skies, warm nights here in July, Portugal, and you'll be able to see these meteor showers. The first of these is on the night of the 16th and is called the Omicron Draconids. This is a fairly minor shower. On the night, you say that, I mean, can you imagine what's actually going on in the sky, even in a minor shower? It must be amazing to be, like, if you could be anywhere near it, which I'm sure the likes of Elon Musk are considering, get into the sky to see a meteor shower. On the night of the 28th, we have the Delta Aquarids, obviously, and this is the most reliable shower of July, with usually about 15 faint meteors visible per hour after midnight in a dark sky. During the last week of the month, we have the Capricornids shower, and whilst not having as many numerous meteors as the Delta Aquarids, or Aquarids, this shower is well known for its occasional bright fireball meteors. What fun, eh? And you don't have to pay a penny. Earlier this year, unless you buy a telescope, there were high hopes to see several potentially bright comets that were at the time heading towards the sun. However, unfortunately, none of these turned out to be easy naked eye objects. Good binoculars and a dark sky were necessary to catch a glimpse of these ghostly visitors to the inner solar system. This guy's a good writer, isn't he? On the subject of spirit visitors, the full moon during the first week of July, be careful, full moon alert, everybody. Maybe that's why I'm in the condition I'm in this morning. Is called the Hungry Ghost Moon. That's the full moon of July. It's the Hungry Ghost Moon, and it's called that in China. This is when offerings of food are left outside at night to the spirits, and the food normally disappears by moonset and sunrise and creates a massive rat problem. No, I said that, but yeah, that's why it disappears. Or local dogs overhead. Oh yeah, if you don't want local dogs or cats to eat what you leave on your doorstep as an offering, just buy them little pet food. My animals won't eat it. Overhead during the summer months, we have the Milky Way passing down from the zenith to the southern horizon. Deep in the Milky Way and high overhead are the 3 bright stars of the summer triangle, with Altair, Deneb, and Vega forming an isosceles triangle, with the long axis forming a pointer looking directly towards and hence towards the south looking directly downwards and hence towards the south on summer evenings. The moon is full on the 5th, last quarter on the 12th, new on the 20th, excuse me, and first quarter on July the 27th. Clive Jackson is the director of the Camera Obscura, which is next to the castle in Tavira, specializing in education and public outreach. He's the writer there, and that was in the features part of the algarveresident.com. Thank you to them for that. And there is even a PDF of the July night sky map that you can download from that article as well. So go to the Portugal Resident for that. And the article is called The July 2020 Night Sky. It does what it says on the tin. I'm going to have go and finish my already lukewarm British tea. If you are, here we go. There's a recommendation for that man. Oh, my word. It's not COVID. Anyone visiting Tavira, I suggest you visit the Camera Obscura, where Clive is a director. Well run, with great explanations for adults and children. A glowing endorsement for Clive, quite rightly there, from Paul Williams. Thank you, Paul, for that. I'm going to post this up, today's show in Expats Portugal, as I normally do, to continue the conversation. It's all very well just getting a bit, riled about it over a breakfast show. Let's see what we can do. I think we need to organise. If you want to keep something, you've got to maintain it, haven't you? And that's what I believe is the case here. The Portugal we know and love. For it to survive, we need to love it and maintain it and continue this conversation. So join me over in Expats Portugal if you want to keep talking about it. But of course, obviously, we're going to do that here. Tomorrow, Sport Report, Expat Sport Report at 10. The Wine Club under the excellent leadership of Eloise Healy at 9 in the evening. Tomorrow, Julie Dawn Fox, the prolific blogger who writes amazing blogs that are of great help to people. Been in Portugal since 2007. Will be with me on Tuesday to talk about her life here. And I'm sure she'll be open to answering a few questions about Portugal as well for you. So Julie Dawn Fox, my guest, a few others up my sleeve as well for next week. Your suggestions very welcome, actually, with guests too. Is there some, bread? I know you want us to talk about bread, Gary. I'm drawing a blank on that. Who could we ask? Is there a famous artisan baker in Lisbon who might join us on the show one morning to talk about bread? Anything else? Do let me know. What do you want to know about? What do you want to talk about here on the Good Morning Portugal live stream? Let me know. Send me a message. Always open to your suggestions and would love to have one of your morning views as the placeholder for the show in the morning. Get your pictures in and we'll get them up online as the introduction to the show each morning. So take care. Até a próxima. See you tomorrow. Até amanhã if you're a sports or wine fan tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll see you on Monday. So it only remains for me to say, bon fin de semana. Ciao.